Okay guys, so I have pattern piece 10 here, which is my pants front. I have marked all of my notches and darts and circles. I did actually accidentally mark a dart line here. So, I'm just gonna slash through this so I don't confuse myself. When I drew my dart in, I actually went from the wrong notch, and so I corrected it. So I'm going to be sewing this dart, not to confuse you guys. And the first thing that we're actually going to do is reinforce the inner corner of our pants front. So on your pattern piece was this marking, and I have that on both sides. So we're going to go to our sewing machine and we're going to stitch down, pivot, and then we're going to stitch across this little marking here, and that is just going to reinforce the inner corner of our pants front. So let's go ahead and go to the sewing machine and stitch separately. So then again, if you want to pin right sides of your fabric. So taking these apart, and we're going to separately stitch down and across here, and then down and across here. So let's go ahead and do that now. All right guys, so here we are at the sewing machine, and like I said, let's see, I think one of my pins fell out. I'm going to go ahead and stitch to reinforce the front of our pants. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to drop down my needle. Of course, you want to back stitch. And then when you get to that small circle, you want to pivot your fabric, and then stitch down that other line and back stitch. Okay, so I don't know if you can even see my stitches, but I've stitched that in the L shape. And then we're going to grab our other pants front and we're going to do the same thing, and then I'll meet you back at the table. Okay, so now that we have that reinforced, I'm going to grab my little tiny scissors and I'm going to get close so that you guys can see what I'm going to do here. So there's a little corner here. I'm going to clip starting there diagonally to but not through my stitching, just like that. I'm going to do the same thing on the other pants leg, well, pants front. So diagonally to but not through my stitches, just like that. Okay, so now that we have that done, so we're basically clipping to the circle here. Now that we have that done, we're going to stitch our darts. So I'm going to go ahead and pin off my darts. I'm going to do that by turning, again, this is the right side of my fabric, so we're pulling the dart onto the wrong side. So this is the right side, this is the wrong side. And basically we're matching up the notches where our darts are, and we're also matching where we drew the dart. So I'm gonna put a pin through, and it came through on the other side on my line, so that's good. That means that's lined up nicely. And I'm just gonna pull it back through. So I like to do the start. I like to take a pin and put it right at the end of my dart, or at my dart root. And then I like to continue depending on the length of my dart. That matches up. And then I'm gonna pop that back through. So I've got 2 pins and then 1 at the end here. That's good enough for me to sew my dart. And when I go to my sewing machine, I'm gonna start at the top I'm going to remove these pins as I go all the way down to the end here. And then I'm not going to backstitch here because I'm going to tie off my threads so that I don't get any puckering at the end of my dart. So again, disregard this. That is not the right dart leg. This is. So again, I'm going to take that fabric to the inside or wrong side of my fabric. And I'm going to try to match my lines, which that is matching. So that's great. I'm going to push that pin all the way through. And then I'm going to go to my dart root. I'm going to pop a pin in there. And that's also so I know where to stop. And then I'm going to take one last pin and pop it through. And that lines up on both sides with the line that I've drawn. And then I'm going to push that through as well. So now we're ready to go to the sewing machine and sew our darts. And again, we're sewing from the top to the bottom. Backstitch at the top, do not backstitch at the bottom. So let's go to the sewing machine and sew those darts. All right, so I'm gonna try to get in close enough. Hopefully you guys can see what I'm doing here. I'm gonna start again at the top. I'm going to drop my needle down. I'm going to remove that pin and keep my finger there so it doesn't get off. I'm going to back stitch at the top. And then I'm just going to follow my line all the way down my dart. And once I get to the end here, I'm going to remove that pin, and I'm going to sew very close to the edge, and right when I get to that dot, I'm going to sew off of my fabric. And I'm going to keep those thread tails long so you can see I've stitched down my dart and I've got these thread tails here. I'm going to do the same thing on the other front pant, and then we'll meet back at the table. All right, you guys, so now that we have our darts stitched, what you want to do is untwist your threads at the ends. It takes a little time, but it's worth it. And then you're just going to tie that off. I like to tie at least 3 or 4 times just to make sure that that thread is secure at the end of my dart. So that's number 2. This is number 3. If I can get it, come on. There we go. Number 3. Okay. And then once you've tied your threads off, you can go ahead and clip the excess. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. We're going to clip that. Okay. So now we're going to go over to our ironing board. And again, you can remove your pins now because you know which side is right and which side is not. And we're going to press our dart toward the center. So the center is, of course, where our crotch is. So we're going to press this dart this way. We're going to press this dart this way. So go ahead and do that, and then we'll come back. Okay, so now that we have that dart pressed, it should look like this on the outside. So nice and flat. This is how it should look on the inside. And we're gonna at this point move on to our pockets of our shorts. So we're gonna grab piece number 11 and then we'll come back. Okay, so here we have piece number 11, which is our lower pocket. So first thing we're gonna do here is make a 5/8 inch narrow hem at the upper side edge of the lower pocket. So this part, that diagonal slanted part, these are right sides, so I'm gonna put them on wrong sides. And the narrow hem is actually going to be here. So the way I'm going to do that is that I'm going to go to my ironing board. I'm just going to remark these so that when I iron I don't lose my markings. I'm going to go to my ironing board and I'm going to press down 5/8 of an inch. I'm going to fold in a 1/4 inch on my raw corner, and then that's going to give us a nice hem like that. So go ahead and do that, a nice narrow hem. Go ahead and do that and we'll come back. Okay, so now that we have our narrow hem here, we're going to fold our seam allowance or turn in on the bottom as well as the unnotched edge. So this long edge as well as the bottom. We're gonna do 5/8 of an inch and we're gonna press that, and then we're gonna do 5/8 of an inch here and we're gonna press that. And you see how we get that nice corner there? So again, on this side, the bottom and the long edge. So leave this open. The part with the notches, don't bother that. Just the bottom and this long edge. So go ahead and press up 5/8 inch on your wrong side of your pocket and then come back. Okay, so once you've got those pressed, it should look like this. And you should have this nice sharp corner on both of your pieces. We're going to now take those and pin the pockets to the pants front, matching our symbols. Okay, so go ahead and grab your pants fronts, and we're going to be working on the right side of those. I'm going to work on one at a time, and I'm going to make sure that I grab the right pocket for the right side. So we are actually sewing right side to wrong side because this is actually the front of our pocket. So we don't want to flip that over. We're not sewing right sides together. This time we're sewing wrong side of pocket to right side of shorts, or right side of front. So we're just going to match those notches that we have at the side. My marks are actually on wrong side of fabric, so those are gone. So, but I'm okay with that because as long as I line it up here on my side and on my top of the pants, I'll be fine. So I'm just going to go ahead and pop some pins in here just to keep this in place. And you can see that when we actually stitch this down, this is going to be the opening of our pockets. So I'm going to pin my other pocket onto my other side. And once we've done that, we're going to edge stitch and top stitch our pressed edges. So all of these edges here, so here, here. So we are going to top stitch the pocket, but we're not going to edge stitch it here because this is actually our pocket opening. So if we were to edge stitch this, that would close it off. We don't want that. So we're going to baste our raw edges. So here and here, we're going to baste. We're going to edge stitch here to here. So this L shape. We're going to go back and top stitch this as well, and we're going to top stitch here, the opening of our pocket. So I'm going to pin my other pocket to my pants front, and then we'll go to the sewing machine. Okay, so now we're ready to edge stitch down our pockets. So again, you want to get really, really close to the edge. It's called edge stitching. This is basically what we did with our bodice pockets as well. So I'm going to get really close to the edge here. I'm going to drop my needle down, I'm gonna back stitch, and we're off. And you want to kind of take edge stitching slowly, because you really want to get as close to the edge as possible without going over. Again, I'm just removing my pins as I go. When we get to the edge, we're going to pivot. And we're going to go across the bottom. And once we've made it to the end, we're going to back stitch. Okay. So that's it for our edge stitching. You can see how flat that pocket is laying. That's what you want. And now that that's done, I'm going to edge stitch my other pocket. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to top stitch here and here and here without catching my pocket flap. So I'm going to go do that, and then I'm going to come back and show you guys how that should look. All right, y'all. So once we have our top stitching done, it should look like this. So once that's actually all done and you've basted your raw edges, so basted here, 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 and here, we're then going to put our pants front pieces aside, and we're going to bring in our piece number 12, which is our pants back. So piece number 12 here. So grab that, and then we'll start on the next step. Again, go ahead and draw your darts in. If you have not, go ahead and cut your notches as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove these pins. The first step that we're going to do here is that we're going to stitch our dart, and we're going to press it toward the center. So I've already shown you how to stitch your darts on the front pants. So go ahead and do this the same way. And then once you've done that, we'll come back to the table. Okay, so now that we have our darts sewn, let me move this like this. This is our center where we will join our shorts or pants. Same steps if you have the pants, just longer legs. So we're going to, again, for our darts, tie off the end thread here, and just like we did before for the front darts, and clip any extra threads, and then we're going to go to our ironing board and we're going to press the darts toward the center. So this dart will go this way toward the center of the leg, and this one will go this way. So go ahead and do that, and then come back to the table. All right, so once we have our darts pressed down toward the center, the next thing that we're going to do is top stitch our dart seam. So we're going to flip our shorts over, or pants over, to the right side, and we're going to top stitch along the inner part of the seam. So Again, about 1/4 of an inch from the seam of our dart inward, we're going to stitch right along that seam, top stitch. So this is where I'm going to use my white thread, and you can use your fabric colored or your contrasting thread to top stitch. So let's go to the machine and do that. All right, guys. So again, I'm just going to be stitching, top stitching right along that seam of the dart that we just did. So here we go. Go ahead and back stitch. And we're off. And I'm going to be gently spreading that seam just to make sure that my dart is flat as I sew it. And back stitch. Okay. So there's side A, my top stitching, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the other dart seam, and then I'll meet you back at the table. All right, y'all, so now that we have our top stitching done, I'm going to remove my pins that showed me that this is the right side, and we're going to do one of my favorite parts because it means that we're coming to the end of our project, in my opinion. So we're going to be stitching the pants front and back together at the inner leg. So go ahead and grab your front pieces with your pockets that we've already finished. And what we're going to do is we're going to match the front and back. So we want those to be right sides together. So I'm going to place them, and then I'm going to work on pinning them one at a time. I'm just going to turn it this way so that you guys can see it better. And I'm just going to pin at the inner leg. So we're only sewing this inner leg part to start. So go ahead and match up your notches and then get that pinned. And then continue pinning that entire inner leg. Okay, so go ahead and pin the other pants side the same way, and then we'll come back. Okay, you guys, so we are ready to sew our inner leg seams now that we have that pinned. So I'm going to start, from the bottom. And again at 5/8 of an inch, I'm going to drop down my needle, back stitch. And then we're off. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and sew my other inner leg seam and then meet you back at the table. All right, so I went ahead and went to the ironing board and pressed open my inner leg seams. So now that that's done, we're going to stitch our crotch seam. So this whole part, this is the back of my shorts or pants. We're going to stitch all the way down around this U up to our small dot that we clipped through on the wrong side of fabric. So the way that I'm going to do this, I'm going to stitch from the center up to that dot, and then I'm going to stitch from the center again up to the back of my shorts. And that way it's just more of a stable stitch. So this is the right side of my fabric. I'm going to grab my other piece that we've sewn together back and front, and I'm going to lay it right on top of that, and we're going to stitch, like I said, from here up and from here up to the small dot. So I'm just going to pin this off. I'm going to start at my inner leg seam, again matching those major points as I go. I have some notches here, so I'm going to match those as well. And then I'm just going to continue pinning this entire piece together. I like to place 2 pins where I'm going to stop, just so that I don't get carried away when I'm at the sewing machine and sew past the point that I'm supposed to. That pin off, let's go to our sewing machine, and we're going to stitch 5/8 of an inch from the middle up to the dot. And then after we've done that, we're going to move in to our seam allowance. So this way we're going to sew 1/4 of an inch from our first stitching line, just to reinforce that crotch area because it gets a lot of wear. So let's go to the sewing machine and do that. All right guys, so here we are. I am going to start with my longest side first. So I'm at the center seam, at my center leg seam. I'm literally going to drop my needle down right at the middle. I'm going to remove my pin and make sure to back stitch. And we're off.
I'm just making sure everything's even as I go. And back stitch.
Tear my threads. I'm just going to check on my bobbin thread, you guys, just to make sure I'm not out. And it looks like I'm okay. All right, so now I'm going to flip this over so that we can sew from the center to that small dot. So again, I'm going to start right at that middle inner leg seam at 5/8 of an inch, drop down my needle and back stitch, and we're off.
I'm going to move these threads out of the way. I'm going to slow down as we approach our stopping point. Remove my pins. And back stitch.
All right. So that's our first pass of stitches. Now we're going to go back like I mentioned, and we're going to stitch another row 1/4 of an inch from the first stitching. So here's our first stitching, and then 1/4 of an inch into the seam allowance, we're going to do another row of stitching. So again, starting from the center, we're just going to repeat the same steps that we just did, a 1/4 of an inch in.
So make sure you backstitch. Okay, we're going to flip this over, and we're going to do side 1 again. 1/4 of an inch from the first stitching. And back stitch. Move any threads out of the way. And back stitch.
Okay, so I'll meet you guys back over at the table. Okay, you guys, so this is how it should look once we have our crotch seam sewn. I'll show you guys from the view that makes the most sense. So here we are. We're going to install our zipper here. That's why we've left that open. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to trim our seams close to our second stitching. So the last stitching that we did. So I'm just going to grab my scissors, kind of hold this up. Actually, I'm going to come from the other way. So I'll have a more controlled cutting. I'm just going to start kind of toward the center. Again, keeping my hand underneath without cutting myself so that I know what I'm cutting and what I'm not. And I'm just going to trim this pretty close to that second row of stitches.
Definitely don't cut through your stitches. Alright, I'm going to flip this. I'm going to trim down a little bit of that center area. And I'm going to turn it. I'm just maneuvering this the way that makes the most sense for me cutting it. So I'm going to start again at our small circle and just trim down those seams close to that second row of stitching.
There we go. Okay, so that should look like this at this point, you guys. Okay, so it doesn't say to press this, but I do like to press my stitching. Right? I'm just going to press that seam to one side. I mean, it really doesn't matter which side you pick, but mine seems to be laying this way. So I'm just going to press it that way, not only to set our stitches, but also to kind of decrease the line that's showing on the outside. So I'm going to do that, and then we're going to come back and move on to the next step. All right, so now that I've pressed that seam flat, the next thing we're going to do is stitch our pants front and back together at the sides. So you want this to be with wrong sides facing you. So we want right sides together. So this is the back, this is the front, right side on top of right side. And we're going to turn these, and we're going to pin down our side seams. So I'm just going to, let's see, match up my other side as well. We're getting some pants, y'all. We're getting some shorts. They're coming together. So this is why we basted this pocket into place, so that when we sew our side seams, we're going to catch all of this, and we're going to have a permanent stitch. But for now, this basting stitch is just holding that pocket in place. So go ahead and pin.
Making sure your top and your bottom are even. If not, go ahead and adjust it, because when we go to sew our hem, that has got to be even. Tops and bottoms are very important. Alright, and then we're going to match our notches. And continue pinning. I'm going to pin my other side the same way.
And then once I do that, we're going to take this to the sewing machine and we're going to sew at 5/8 of an inch from the bottom all the way up the top of our side seam. Okay, so let's sew these side seams. Again, I'm starting from the bottom, 5/8 of an inch. Make sure you back stitch. And we're off.
You will feel some bulk under here because that's your pocket, but that's going to be a little bulky, so don't be nervous about that. And back stitch.
All right, now we're going to flip this around and start at the bottom of our other leg. And once I've sewn that up, I'll meet you back at the table. Okay, you guys, so once we've sewn our side seams, our shorts or pants should look something like this. We have our opening in the front for our zipper. So I'm going to do a few things. I'm going to remove the basting stitches on the side. We don't need those anymore since we've sewn our permanent stitch here. Do not take out your basting stitches at the top because we're not done with those yet. So leave those in place. And I'm going to also press open these side seams, and then we'll move on to the next step. All right, y'all, so now we're going to move on to the next step, which is with right sides together, we're pinning our bodice to our pants or shorts. We're going to match our centers. So go ahead and grab your shorts. I have my bodice here already. Go ahead and grab your shorts, and let's see. I'm going to turn my shorts right side out like that. Let me see if I can get more. Okay. So my shorts are right side out. And then I'm going to take my bodice and turn it wrong side out. And then that's going to allow me to line this up, right side of bodice to right side of shorts. So of course the front is where the zipper is going to go, so the open part. So I'm going to start by matching my back seams. So this is my center back of my shorts. I'm going to take, and this is kind of going to be, my bodice is upside down. So here's my collar all the way down here, and here's the bottom of my bodice. So this is actually going to be upside down. I have a notch here, which is the center of the back of the bodice. I'm going to line that up with that center back seam of my shorts, or if you're sewing pants, same thing. So line that up and pin it, and then we're going to go matching things. So we have this seam here. We're going to match that as well. So just kind of look at that and pin it. So again, this is our landmark pinning, things that have to match. So when we sew this together, we really want these seams to match all the way down the jumpsuit. So then I get to my side seam. Again, I'm going to match that. So I'm matching that side seam of the shorts and the bodice, pinning that. And you can kind of check and see how it's going to be lining up, and you can adjust it if you need to. Okay, and then we're just going to continue pinning all the way to the end. So I like to pin at the end right away. To me, that's another landmark, because you want the fronts of your jumpsuit to be matched up. We have another notch here, so we're going to pin there. And then we have this seam again where we have our dart. We're going to pin that. And then the excess area we're just going to pin. And this is where your top of your pocket is basted. Once we've stitched this bodice to the shorts or the pants, then you're actually good to remove that basting at that point. I also like to pin my darts down so that when I'm sewing, those don't get turned the wrong way. So that's another step. To me, there's really never too many pins. I even like to pin down my seam allowance just to keep that nice and flat on both sides. And now that I've pinned all my landmarks, I can come back and fill in all these other areas that I did not pin yet. So all right, that's how that's looking. So I'm going to continue on to pinning this on the other side the same way that I did here. And once I finish that, we're going to go to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch all the way across. All right, y'all, so here we go. I have my everything pinned from my bodice and my shorts. So I'm going to start on one side and sew all the way across to the other. Of course, making sure everything is flat as I go, making sure my seams are flat and darts are flat and everything. So I'm just gonna get my presser foot down, again 5/8 of an inch, and don't forget to back stitch. And we're off.
If you need to make little adjustments as you go, do that. Again, I'm just making sure everything is nice and flat. Alright. So again, as I get to my seams, I'm just making sure those are still flat. I'm just turning my fabric as I go.
All right. So now that we have that sewn, it doesn't say to in the directions, but I'm actually gonna reinforce that seam just because it is pulled by gravity between the bodice and the shorts. And so to me, that's kind of going to be a very worn area when you wear this jumpsuit. So I'm just going to stitch again 1/4 of an inch from that first stitch into my seam allowance just to reinforce that seam. The next step we're gonna do, and I'm just gonna stay here because it's at the sewing machine, is we're going to stitch, or we're going to top stitch our bodice. So we're going to turn everything right side out, and we're going to stitch here. So this is my bodice, this is my shorts, these are my shorts. We're going to top stitch 1/4 inch from the seam line going toward the bodice. So right across here is where we're going to do our row of top stitching. So I'm going to change out my thread and then do that. All right, so I have my thread changed out. Oops, sorry. I have my thread changed out. I'm going to go ahead and start top stitching. Let's see, and I'm going to push my seam allowances up toward my bodice when I do that. So, all right, so let me drop down my presser foot and my needle, and you do want to kind of spread apart that seam as you do this, just to make sure that that is not bunching up on you. So I'm going to drop my needle down. Make sure to back stitch, and we're off.
And you should feel that seam underneath your bodice as you're top stitching. And I'm just taking this a little bit at a time, making sure to pull apart that seam as I go. Slowly go over that area. Good amount of bulk there.
All right, so we have successfully top stitched the seam of our waist and bodice all the way across, and now let's go back to the table. Okay, you guys, so we are almost there. We are very close. So this is what it should look like at this point. Pockets, shorts or pants, seam, and top stitching. I trimmed my excess threads. I also went to the ironing board and pressed out that middle seam between the bodice and the shorts, or the bodice and the pants. So go ahead and do that as well, just to make sure that your threads are you know, melded into your fabric as good as they can be. And once we have that done, we're going to move on to installing our zipper. So go ahead and grab your zipper, you guys. All right, so in order to install our zipper, we're going to turn our jumpsuit inside out. So I'm looking at the wrong side of this jumpsuit, and I'm going to fold back my seam allowance. So 5/8 of an inch. I'm going to fold back all the way down on both sides, and I'm going to press that into place. So go ahead and do that and then come back. All right, you guys, so once you have your 5/8 of an inch seam allowance pressed under, we're going to turn our jumpsuit right side out, We're gonna get ready to install our zipper. So go ahead and grab your zipper if you have not already. Okay, so you have your zipper. We're gonna baste the top ends of this zipper under so that when it's at the top of our garment, you don't see this tape. It's nice and pressed. So go, well, nice and out of the way. So go ahead and baste that. Once you have your zipper tape basted under, we're going to align this zipper. Again, my zipper is a little too long, but that's okay. We're gonna align this zipper in the middle. So facing up like this, we're gonna put it in the middle of our two sides. And we're gonna basically pin down. So I'm gonna have to cut my zipper, but if you got the right size, then you're fine. See, let me cut this and then I'll be back. Okay, so what I'm doing now is pinning down one side of this zipper. So I'm going to just get the folded edge of the fabric really close to the teeth of the zipper, but not covering because we need to be able to open this. And I'm just using my hand underneath to pin my fabric close to those zipper teeth. So I'm gonna go all the way down. And then once I've done that, I'm gonna come back up the other side of my garment. And I'm gonna make sure that especially this middle part here, the middle seam, is matching on the zipper because you don't want it to be lopsided. So I'm gonna finish pinning this and then we'll go to the sewing machine and use our zipper foot to sew in our zipper. Okay, so guys, once we have our zipper pinned into place on both sides, I'm gonna baste this and then I'm gonna go over to the sewing machine and use my zipper foot to stitch this zipper in. So go ahead and baste and then meet me over at the sewing machine. All right, y'all, so I have my zipper foot in place here. Not an invisible zipper foot, but just a regular zipper, exposed zipper. I have basted my zipper in place just to make sure that it does not shift while I'm sewing. So what we're gonna do, and I'm gonna take this slow because I've been doing a lot of invisible zippers, but not an exposed zipper in a while. So I am going to start on the right front of my jumpsuit and zipper. So you want to put your zipper teeth underneath the ridge of your zipper foot, but you also want to keep, let's see if I can tighten that. You want to keep your zipper teeth very, very close to your fabric. So I'm just trying to find that perfect balance here. And let's see. That should be it there. Okay, so you want your needle very, very close to your fabric. So I'm just going to drop that needle down, but you don't want to be sewing through your zipper teeth because then you'll probably break your needle or something. So hopefully you guys can kind of see this as I'm doing this. So I'm just going to very slowly start to sew down the side of this zipper.
Moving my thread out of the way. Oh, and if you didn't notice, I did unzip my zipper.
So that's something you'll want to do as well, is unzip your zipper.
Again, I'm just maneuvering my fabric to get as close as I can to my zipper stop at the bottom.
And when I've gotten about as close as I can, I'm going to leave my needle in place. I'm going to try to pull my zipper stop up. See if I can get it. It can be tough to do it. Let's see. There we go. And then I'm gonna make sure everything's out of the way on the bottom of this, and I'm just gonna drop down my presser foot and slowly and gently continue to sew down that zipper. I'm gonna go about maybe half an inch past where the zipper ends. I'm gonna pivot across I'm gonna do a couple stitches. Be careful with your zipper. A couple stitches right across. And I'm just going to back stitch that in place. Okay, so now I'm going to trim my threads. And you see how we've come down here and we've kind of squared off our stitching. So now that the first side is done, I'm going to start again at the top for my other zipper side. I'm sure some people do this differently where they square it off and come up from the bottom of the zipper, but I am going to switch my zipper foot over to the other side, and I'm going to do the same thing that we just did, just sewing that zipper in place, and drop that down very close to your fabric, about right there. And then I'm just gonna drop down my needle, and we're gonna back stitch. I'm gonna pull my thread out of the way, and then we're just gonna slowly sew that side of our zipper into place.
My zipper slowly. And making sure your fabric is close to your teeth but not on them. Okay, we're getting close to the end again.
So just like we did on the first side, we're gonna keep our needle in, and we're gonna move our zipper stop out of the way by zipping that up. It's kind of difficult to maneuver, but You should be able to just get it. Okay, I'm gonna drop back down our presser foot and our needle, and we're gonna continue down, stitching down. Okay, so we're actually going to stitch until we get down to that area that we stitched across on earlier. So I'm just going to keep going a few stitches down until I meet that stitch. I'm going to do a slight pivot once I've gotten there. And again, make sure everything's out the way underneath here. And I'm just gonna do a couple stitches right across just to back stitch and finish that off. All right, so our zipper is now in. Let's see how I'm gonna get out of here. I think I'll go this way. Okay, our zipper is now in. So let's go back over to the table and finish everything off. All right, you guys, so our zipper is in. Once you've sewn your zipper in, you can remove your basting. And then we're gonna go ahead and finish everything. So, you know, test your zipper, make sure it's functional. Make sure again that this is lined up here at your midsection. And once you've done that, go ahead and remove your basting and then come back. All right, you guys. So this is how it should look so far. We're gonna finish off by doing just a 5/8 inch narrow hem at the bottom of these shorts. If you're sewing up view B, C, or D, you're going to turn up whatever hem they want you to there, and then turn in a quarter. So turn up your hem, turn in a 1/4 of an inch on the raw edge, and then you're gonna baste that, press it, and then top stitch along your basting. But if you're sewing the shorts, a 5/8 inch narrow hem. So we're just gonna turn this up about 5/8 of an inch. We're gonna turn it inside out, and then turn our raw edge under a 1/4 of an inch. So that's gonna be like that, and then we're gonna stitch. And so kind of like how we did our sleeves. Same type of hem, except 5/8 of an inch. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and then I'll show you guys the final product. All right, you guys, so once you have finished your bottom hem, it should look something like this. And you guys, we are done. We are done. So good job with your project, guys. That is it. So probably give your jumpsuit a good press, and then it's ready to wear outside.